There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, your home for deer hunting news, stories, and strategies. And now, your host, Mark Kenyon.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kenyon, and this is episode number 390. And today in the show, we are tackling just about the most depressing topic in the deer hunting world, but one that we all will likely face at one point or another. And that's missing a buck and figuring out what to do next. That's what happened to me last week, actually. Hey, real quick, before we start today's episode, I got to give you a quick heads up. Season 2 of the Back 40, the show I host, that season has launched. It is now up on the Meat Eater YouTube channel. And the second episode of Season 2 just dropped a few days ago. So you got to head on over to the Meat Eater YouTube channel and go give it a watch. The first episode showcases some of the work we did earlier this spring, our progress, our bees, a check-in with Steve Ranella, and a look at how everything has been coming together into the early summer. Episode 2, I'm joined by Doug Duran and Dan Jajo, a guy who you're going to hear from here on today's podcast soon. We're planting trees, planting food plots, and making some real serious progress this summer on the property, which led to a lot of good things for us this year. Check it on out. It's at the Meat Eater YouTube channel. I'm very proud of it. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please give it a watch. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a comment. It would mean the world. And now, to today's podcast. All right, welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast brought to you by Onyx. Today, we're talking about something that none of us really want to have to talk about, but we do. It gets swept under the rug sometimes in the hunting world. And if you're out there as a hunter and you're having experiences like this, you might feel like, oh, I'm the only guy in the world who's ever missed a deer. Or you're going to feel really bad about yourself because this thing happened and you feel like you're on an island. And when you watch TV shows, everyone seems to be perfect and they seem to be killing big bucks left and right and they do it so well. And you might be thinking, man, why can't I do that? Well, I'm here to tell you that we've all been there. It happens, and it happens to those guys and girls that look really good on TV too. They might not show it, but it's happening. And that's why I want to talk about missing a deer and what do you do next. Because I missed a deer here just recently. I've had kind of a devastating week. So I want to tell that story. I want to talk about what's happened. And also I'm here with another guy who missed a deer just recently. And he's processing and working through all that right now. And so we want to talk about that experience too. We're going to work through the stories. We're going to work through what we think we did right, what we maybe did wrong, what we can learn from it, different ideas for how all of us can kind of take that next step after missing a deer and come out the other side better and more prepared for the next shot. So with me, I've got 4.5 people. To my left, the half person just gave me the eye. To my left, Dane, I'm going to get this wrong. I don't know how to pronounce your last name properly.
Welcome to my world.
To my left is Dane
Acevedo.
Okay, that's what I thought. Dane Acevedo won the hunt on the Back 40. So congratulations.
Thank you for having me here.
It's been maybe different than you expected because number one, because of that virus that's going all over the country and the world these days, Steve could not come here for the hunt. So we had to have some change of plans there. I know you're going to get a makeup because of that, but we still want to try to show you a good time here without Steve. So, Dane, I'm glad you're here. It's been a lot of fun to have you on the property.
No, it's been great. I felt like I've had my own little hunting TV show. I've just been by myself in some of them, so it's been awesome.
So, Dane's to my left. To his left is Dan Jajo. Dan, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, and so for folks that are longtime listeners, Dan was the new hunter that joined us on the podcast last fall after one of QDMA's Field to Fork mentored hunts. And he went out on one of his first hunts with a friend of ours, Jason Meekoff, and then we decided that this year we're going to put you to work on the back 40 and then bring you out for another hunt.
Yep.
And then to his left is half-person Charlie. Charlie doesn't have a microphone, but if you recall the podcast last week with Tony Peterson, Justin, and Charlie, if you're ever wondering what Charlie's thinking, it's probably something related to staring off into the stars or junk food.
UFOs.
I've
never brought up UFOs yet.
Sasquatch.
We talked about it yesterday.
for quite a lengthy time. So Charlie's here and listening. If he's got something really important to say, he's going to grab a headset. If not, he's just going to give us the look. And then we got Justin, cameraman extraordinaire. He's been a rock star out here for the last 10, 12 days, whatever it's been, filming me, filming Dan, getting a lot of good stuff on film. So that's our crew. And let's talk a little bit. Let's start with the back 40. How about that? I want to talk a little bit about what's been going on here, what's happened, what led you to what happened last night. And then as we're kind of going through this, we're going to talk through some things. Dane jump in, Justin jump in, whoever. But we are here for 2 hunts, right? We wanted to get Dane a shot at a buck out here on the property. You won the hunt. Want to show you a good time. And then also Dan, as I mentioned, is back out here trying to get a shot at his first deer ever. Before we get into last night, Dan, can you kind of give us an update on how your hunting experiences have progressed since last fall? So last fall we had talked and you dabbled a little bit by yourself. You did a hunt with a mentor one time.
Yep.
In between then and prior to this trip, walk me through what you've done, what your experience has been trying to learn to hunt and figure this out on your own still.
Yeah, so last year, like you said, went out with Jason Meekoff from at that Field to Fork program, got me going, and then I started getting out there on my own, just on public land, right? Tried to dabble a little bit, just getting comfortable in the woods, getting comfortable in certain situations where I might be able to find some deer, maybe get a shot off. I kept practicing my bow, and that's what I really wanted to do, was try to get a deer with my bow. Had a few encounters, but nothing really, legitimate. Just kind of was really getting the feel of it. It wasn't until this season where I kind of started really cranking up my efforts. I started doing a lot of research over the summer, Onyx on my home computer, just figuring out places to go, scouting a little bit in the summer. So I've pinpointed a few spots that I wanted to go hunt. Got my gear situation figured out. I ended up deciding that I was going to hunt via a saddle. So I got comfortable with that. So this season has been like a huge step in my game. Just trying to figure out the whole thing and trying to, make things happen and getting a deer. So it's been fun. I've had a lot of, frustrations and good learning experiences, this season. But yeah, it's been good.
Any frustrations that stand out?
Big one has been just learning things on my own. Obviously, like we were talking about, like getting out there and seeing like certain sign and trying to interpret that sign and what that's really telling me. Trying to figure out if this is a good spot to set up at versus that spot. Dealing with hunting pressure, that's been a big one because most of my hunts have been on public land, right? Like I'll find a spot on Onyx and think it's money just to freaking hike in there, and there's a tree stand set up right where I thought I'd be hunting. So that's been some frustrations. I don't know how much you want me to get into this, but last week on a hunt, my last hunt before I came out here, I actually took a shot at a deer. and missed. So that's been a frustration of mine, and getting around that, trying to learn from it, trying to grow from it, taking these experiences and trying to just pick out certain things and figure out how I would do it differently next time has been good. Frustrating but good, but it's been fun.
So walk me through that archery encounter.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I was out on a Wednesday. I had work off for Veterans Day, so I woke up at 3 a.m., drove out to...
He's doing so good. He's telling us, Justin and I were sitting in the blind together, and he's telling us what he's doing, and I listened to him like he's on the right freaking track.
For sure.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
He's actually too deep at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's some of the details he gave us, there's no turning back. So
yeah, he's doomed. His girlfriend's doomed.
His girlfriend is
you guys have ruined me, man. Like, I feel bad for her, but it's over now.
He's like, hey man, I bought an ozone generator and I'm running my clothes. They're like, oh buddy, you're speaking my language.
Then he said the word maps, and I'm like, yep, welcome.
So sorry, you woke up at 3 a.m. My kind of wake up time.
Yeah, woke up at 3 a.m., drove out to a public land spot that I've been hunting. Set up, didn't see anything in the morning, and just was getting frustrated because my whole season has been like fired up, gonna set up at this spot, and then not seeing anything. So I've had so few encounters this season that it's been challenging. So I just decided, whatever, I'm just gonna go to a completely different spot for the afternoon hunt, hike around, try to find some good sign, and see what happens, right?
Yep.
So I did exactly that. I found another section. A lot of guys were out, so I just wanted to get away from the guys. Found a little spot, probably 3/4 of a mile into the public land. A lot of good sign. Basically set up on this like deer highway, what it seemed like. Set up on the ground because I didn't really feel comfortable getting up in the saddle. And probably like an hour into the hunt, I saw some movement off to my right. Looked like there was two doe kind of passing through. And then I was going to wait for them to kind of come my way and then maybe set up on a spot, but they just never did. And then I always, you're always saying, like, you got to find the spot within the spot, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Should I move over there? Should I not? What do I do? So it was getting like last hour of light, probably like 45 minutes to last shooting light. And I said, screw it. I'm going to walk over there and just see if I can set up on this spot. Maybe something will come cruising by. So I did that. On my way over there, I bumped those two doe. They ended up sticking around. I bumped them. I said, whatever, hunt's over at this point. But I didn't want to leave because I didn't want to screw up anybody else's hunt on my way out. So I just kind of set up on the ground, and sure enough, they came back. And they came back, and they were meandering around me. One got to about 30 yards behind me. She was directly downwind of me, just sniffing at me, stomping her feet, whatever, and I just knew I was like busted, right? But she was kind of quartering away from me, and she wasn't running off, but she was kind of looking back, and I just said, I'm going to try to just, make something happen. Drew back. Was it a shot I should have taken? I don't know. Probably not. A little further out of my comfort zone in terms of my range. She was probably 30 to 35 yards. Let one rip, and I just hammered the trigger, right? And I saw the arrow fly right. I knew I missed it, and at that point I was like, whatever, It was cool just to get a shot off at a deer. It was cool going from like, okay, I'm set up here, not seeing anything. I'm gonna reposition and maybe give myself an opportunity, and then I did get an opportunity, which was awesome, but just didn't make it happen. And I don't know. That was kind of the hunt.
So the very first time I ever drew back on a deer, I don't know. Well, I hunted for quite a few years before I did. 17, something like that, maybe 17, 18. And it was a 4-point buck that came walking in along a ridge. And I was in the ground blind, down a little bottom. And then there's this main trail that came down the side of this ridge. And I remember seeing this movement cresting the ridge and then antlers, and I thought, oh my God, there's a buck, and it's getting closer and it's getting closer, and then I don't remember anything. And then there was an arrow sticking in a tree. I essentially blacked out once that buck came in. I mean, my body went into autopilot. I wasn't thinking. I had no control over myself. It just was like there was a buck. I drew back, and all the arrow was flying. And what happened? Then afterwards, I'm sitting there thinking, how did I get to this point? Did anything like that happen with you? Was it like a moment? Did you feel like you were in control? Were you there mentally, or was it like, holy crap, I'm shooting a deer and then it just happened? Because what I'm trying to say is that it is normal to feel that way, especially early on. Yeah. Can you describe like your mindset and what was going through your head?
Yeah,
if you can recall.
I was there mentally. I didn't black out by any means. But the doe knew like what she was looking at, right? So I was worried about getting busted, and I wanted it so bad, right? Mm-hmm. You know, I wanted that shot. I wanted it to go my way, and the nerves started to hit me, and I was kind of shaken. I was shaken to the point where, like, when I did draw my bow back, all the practice and all the repetition that I had over the summer, in-season repetition with my bow, kind of just like went out the window, right? Like my process drawn back, getting my anchor points ready, you know, feeling my kisser button kind of just like out the window at that point. So that's after I took the shot, I realized like I didn't go through any of the things that I normally do practicing with my target, you know? That coupled with the nerves, I think just kind of ruined my opportunity, hammered the shot, like I said, and you know, just wasn't a good shot.
Does that sound familiar to any of you guys? Justin, Dane, have you ever been in that situation?
Yeah, for sure. That's what's, you know, as time goes on and the more you put yourself in those scenarios, like, then you start to kind of reel it back in. But yeah, there's definitely like a bit of a blackout. Early on, for sure.
Dane, you've just gotten a bow hunting the last couple of years, right?
Yeah, I picked up a bow 2 years ago, and I mean, I have yet to let an arrow go on an animal, and I probably have to deal with that same thing too. Like, I have the checklist I do at home when I shoot, and it's don't grip too tight, anchor point, don't punch. All that stuff's in my head when I'm practicing, but I've yet to have to, like, I don't know, put it in game form yet.
And I can tell you, having been bow hunting for, I don't know, 20 years or something like that, and killed a lot of deer with a bow, I still have had moments where that stuff flies out the window to a degree. Like, it's a constant battle, constantly trying to keep your composure, stay in control of the process. I mean, if anyone who's listened to the podcast for a long period of time knows that, you know, several years ago I had to completely reconstruct how I shoot to try to reclaim control. And it's been significantly improved the past few years, but I still make mistakes too. So this is something that everybody listening, I think, can relate to in one way or another. And the only ways that I've found to get that control back, and the only way I've heard consistently from other people, is to do two things. One is to constantly practice that situation and try to make it as automatic, being in the process, trying to make that as automatic as possible, so that checklist and all the steps you need to take becomes drilled into you. So there's no way your body doesn't do anything except for nose on the string, anchor point, you know, don't torque the bow, all that stuff. So that's so automatic that even if your brain does shut down, your body does all the right things. And then number two, and most importantly, it's just doing it. It's just being in that moment and handling that situation and shooting under pressure. You can replicate it a little bit by shooting with friends or shooting in competition, finding some way to add some degree of pressure to the shot, and that in a way will replicate, you know, the pressure of a deer in front of you, but nothing quite does it like an actual animal in front of you and having to do that. Justin, you've missed some deer, probably, right? Mm-hmm. How do you talk me through some situations you've been through? Is there anyone that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, do you want misses or do you want, like, bad shots?
You could say whichever story you think best showcases something you can learn from, something you can identify a problem with.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, like, slowing down. It's like as the moment ramps up, you have to slow it down.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, I think time practicing and the repetition, you just have to create muscle memory and overcome. Like, I mean, we were talking yesterday about this thing that happens to you when a deer comes in and, you know, either you shoot or you don't shoot, but your body goes into this like different mode.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't know exactly how you control it. You just kind of had to ride, you know, you're along for the ride. And, but yeah, creating that, like I you know, I have a deer that still kind of haunts me, and it's hanging in my friend's house. It was one of my first all day sits, and it was like 3:00 in the afternoon. And I was like, you know, I guess starting to lose focus. You know, it was a long day, and it all can happen so quickly. I think that's one thing, is like, you don't always have the luxury of seeing like, okay, it's at 300 yards. Now it's at 200 yards. Now it's at, you know, it's like, oh crap, there is a doe with a buck behind it. And, it's like, I don't know how you really reel in that, because you feel like, oh, I got to make it happen. But yeah, I mean, like even you, like the other day watching you shoot that deer, you know, I've heard you talk about your process and whatnot, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like,
you're talking about me.
Yeah,
watching me shoot.
Sorry.
Drop time.
Yeah, Mark.
Okay.
So yeah, when I was in the tree with Mark, I've heard him talk about his process and these things that he goes through, and I'm on the deer filming, and like I know that he is drawn back, and I'm like, why is he not shooting? And then like looking back at the footage and like seeing what was going on, it's like you have like kind of honed in on like that process, and were able to slow down. And I kept thinking, when I would shoot, I would have shot before you, but like, I mean, and you killed the deer. And yeah, so that buck came in behind the doe. She was at 30 yards. They were at 30 yards, and you know, I felt like I had little time, and you know, I punched the trigger. It's like it's one of those things like I think we all work at, and you know, I feel confident with my release, but I want to go further. Like I can kill deer with my current setup, but I'd love to go further, because taking out any chances of like something that could go wrong, you know. So I've toyed with going to a back tension release, but yeah, it's never easy.
No. And I think you bring up a good point, which is anyone out there right now, anyone listening, not even the very best, most ice cold killer out there is always going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We all are going to have those moments where it doesn't go just right. Even if you do everything right, there's still a wild animal, and there's these variables that are out of your control too. So what I've always thought is that just be working to get better, always getting better every single year in the off season. Think, okay, I did pretty good last year. Maybe I didn't do so good last year. What things can I identify that I can work on? What can I do differently? How can I do something to take that next step or 2 or 3 steps so that next year I'm a little bit better than it was last year? And you brought up the fact that you felt like you had to take the shot. Like it was, you got to take advantage of this opportunity. And you said the same thing, Dan. And there's like 3 types of misses, I think, that happen. There's probably a lot more of that, but I can think of like 3 categories. There's one category where someone's out there shooting and they just have not practiced enough. They can't shoot well. And that one's just kind of on you. Everyone's got to make sure that they're practicing, that they're competent, etc. But then there's 2 other kinds of misses that tend to happen for people that are competent with their equipment and with their process, but still happen. And one of those is just like target panic, buck fever. You just like your nerves got a hold of you, and you lost track of your process. And then the third one is what I think you described, Justin, which is forcing a shot. A situation where you feel like, I got to take the shot. We work so hard for this stuff all year, right? We put in a lot of time in season, a lot of time off season, put in energy. We sacrifice. We take vacation days, or we don't spend time with our families or friends, or we wake up at 3 a.m., whatever it is. And all that builds up, and you've got this like weight, this thing in your chest that feels like I'm supposed to get this thing done. It's finally here. Oh my God, I got to do it right now. And bam, you force something that you shouldn't have. And let me tell you what, I can relate to that, I had a situation. I hate that I can name several situations like this, but there's a buck that a lot of you guys heard me talk about back in 2014. The biggest buck I'd ever been able to hunt at that time. Great big buck down in Ohio. And I've been hunting him for 2 years. And finally, it's like October 16th, actually, I made like a kind of impromptu move, drove 4.5 hours down to this property because I thought he'd be moving with this weather front that came through, and took a dive in close to his bedding area. And the second day, I made a move in there, and bam, out of nowhere, he's there. Like I turn around, he's right there, like 20, 25 yards or something like that. But walking quickly across this opening. And I remember thinking this exact same thing you did, Justin. I said, I have to get the shot. He's about to walk out of my life. And I spun around, and I'm trying to get the camera on him, and I'm trying to draw back, and he's about to walk behind these bushes, and I'm like, I got to shoot now. And I just did it. And I didn't slow down. I didn't focus on my process. I forced the shot, hit back and low, and didn't find him for a couple months. Didn't find him till the winter. And that's one that has stuck with me for a long time. So the question when that kind of thing happens is what do you do? The question after any of these is, what do you do next? How do you handle that? What do you learn from it? So coming out of that one, it was trying to find ways to like get my mind back to process. So something coming out of that hunt, I remember, was trying to develop a mantra of sorts. This is a common thing a lot of people talk about, a way to use verbal cues to pull you back into control. So, at that point, I'm trying to remember what I was saying back then. I think it was, I honestly can't think of what it was. But I had some kind of verbal thing. It was something just like slow it down, slow it down, slow it down. Just something that can break you out of the trance. Because there's this kind of shot trance that we get into. When he's coming in and you're just like, oh, I got to go. If you can somehow snap it, I've found, if you can break yourself out of it, it's kind of like there's this invisible barrier. You know those movies and they show like a force field around something? And it's a force field that you can kind of push up against like a bubble. But if you can finally burst through that bubble and it explodes, you can get through. When you are trying to get a shot at a deer with a gun or a bow, you're stuck in this crazy bubble of intensity, and this moment's insane, and you're in this blackout bubble. If you can somehow find something that can push you through and pop it, all of a sudden sanity can take control again. The mantra is one way to do that. I've worked on several other things that have helped me, but usually it's some kind of verbal cue, a checklist, something that can snap you. If you can get to step 1 and actually think about it in your head, it's a whole hell of a lot easier to get to step 2. And if you can literally say the words, okay, splash it on, get on the target, okay. Watch it, keep it. Okay, which is, so for me, like my process right now, draw back, it's splash it on there. I took this from Brian Call, and I just used it. So that's just get the pin on the deer where you want it, and then watch it, keep it. So now I'm just watching the pin. I'm letting the pin float. I'm just going to watch, and then it's pull. And so at that point, once I'm on, I'm watching it for a couple seconds, and then I'm just going to slowly pull until that sucker goes off. And I use a back tension release now so that I kind of lose a little bit of control in that I can't determine when the trigger gets punched. All I can do is pull. And it's just like a slow squeeze back with the shoulder. And then it goes. And that's helped me a lot. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but it's helped me a lot. That's one way to think about some of these things, I guess.
Now, a lot of you guys are familiar with the old hunting tradition of eating, some organ, the heart or a chunk of liver off the first animal you kill. I had that when I was a little kid, and it was a big deal. Organ meats were always prized by frontier people who knew the importance of getting a lot of different minerals and nutrients. And as often is the case, those guys were onto something, because organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. And you can get the same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil, made exclusively from regeneratively raised, grass-fed, and finished cattle. Heart and Soil's unique freeze-drying process means all those important nutrients are trapped in, ensuring you experience every one of the benefits of nature's superfood in a clean, convenient, taste-free capsule. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And make sure to use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. That's heartandsoil.co. Use the code MeatEater. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Let's get to then, Dan, what happened on this hunt. So we're going to keep working through a number of different examples here and talking about what we can do from those. So, Dan, you had that archery encounter, and then you're going to come out here and hunt with us. What were your thoughts coming into this hunt? Were you excited? Were you nervous? Did you think, I'm going to kill a deer? Did you think did you want to do this? Were you feeling pressured to do this? Where's your head?
No, I didn't feel pressured to do this at all. I was really excited. Like, you guys had me out over the summer. I put some work into the property, and I was fired up to come out and hunt with you guys, right? So I was happy to be here, and I was ready to go. I did, like, my rifle hunting experience has been limited, right? So that aspect was kind of, I was a little unsure about it, but I felt pretty confident that you guys would coach me through it, and we would end up getting into something. So I was pretty excited, pretty kind of nervous, but yeah, it felt good.
Yep. And so we started the trip. Dane and Dan came to my place. We did some shooting. Everyone was shooting really good. We felt good about stuff. And then we headed out to hunt. First day, we had lousy weather. It was like monsoon, crazy wind. Welcome to Michigan, Dane.
A little rough.
Was that probably wasn't what you were expecting?
And that's the thing. I didn't know what to expect. I think I'd asked you, a week or two before I came out. It's like, what should I plan for weather? And you told me, well, it's been 75 here, but it could get down to the 20s. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a wide range. I didn't know what I was coming into and what to expect when I did get here. And she gave us hell. That's for sure.
Kansas and Michigan.
Yeah, there was some serious blowing winds. I think it was like 25 to 30 sustained type winds with gusts up to 60 at one point, they were saying. There were a couple times where those gusts hit those tower blinds, and I was like,
blinds got a little rocky.
Yeah. About to get some good footage of us falling over. Yeah.
But everything held up darn well. I mean, the wall tent, nothing pulled down the wall tent. I was
solid construction, whoever set it up.
Very impressed. Yes, it must have been us that did a good job. And the tower blinds withstood it all. I was pleasantly surprised with all that. But day one was pretty rough. We saw, the first morning we saw Dan and I, 3 does?
Yeah, I think so. I think we had the one that busted us, and did we see a few more?
I'm trying to remember. I feel like we saw 3 in the morning and 3 in the evening. But
you might be right.
I can't remember where those 3 were. I remember the one that came down by itself, but where were the other 2?
Well, in the evening, you're talking about the evening?
No, in the morning.
In the morning? I can't remember.
I saw nothing but sideways rain.
You saw sideways rain.
Our blind.
And then we played a lot of euchre in the middle of the day, which was fun. Found out that Dan's a cheating fool.
Oh, I played a win, man.
Yeah, this guy here.
Cheating is not the right way to describe my
Luckily,
euchre.
Luckily, you didn't know about his.
That is fair game.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't have been here if you'd have known about his character.
Yeah, exactly. We would have redacted that invitation real quick if I played cards with you beforehand.
I said I played a win.
Yeah, I guess so. We snuck out at the end of the evening, even though it was crazy windy. We thought, let's just sneak out on the ground and see if we can spot something and maybe get lucky. Ended up seeing 3 does, which, could have been a buck behind them. You never know. It could have worked out, but it didn't. It was worth a shot. And next morning, we switched locations. We ended up seeing 3 does.
Yep.
Or a handful of does. No, 5 does. We saw 5.
Oh, yeah.
There's the first 2, and then another group of 3. And Dane, what'd you see?
Saw 3.
3.
3 does.
So we've been seeing kind of a handful of does every sit. It's kind of been the story, but no bucks until last night. And this is a relatively short hunt, 3-day hunt. We had bad weather on the first day. We're on night of number 2, so we're approaching 2/3 of the way done. Dan, how are you feeling going into the hunt last night? We set up back near the honey hole, same spot that my dad was hunting one of the nights when he came out here, close to where I killed my buck a week ago. Did you feel good? Did you feel...
Yeah, I felt really good going into the evening hunt last night. The weather was kind of calming down. The wind was going to die down in the evening, right kind of near last shooting light. So I think I told you earlier in the day, I think like tonight's I have a good feeling about tonight.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was really excited.
Yeah, I felt really good too. Like you said, we've been having crazy wind and bad weather, and yesterday evening was the first day. It was really first time it was gonna die down. It was real cold, bluebird skies. It just seemed like deer should be moving. And sure enough, we got to the last hour or so, last 45 minutes, and bam, first deer we see behind us. Justin actually spotted it first. Nice eye, Justin.
Mm-hmm.
There's a buck standing right behind us. First buck we've seen of the hunt. And Justin, there's a buck right behind us. And then I slip my head around, I look out the side window, and I see right away it's like a nice, tight, tall buck. And he's staring right at us. Dan, walk me through your thoughts at this point. So we say there's a buck, I spin around, and you didn't move. You were just kind of sitting there. I'm like, Dan, you should be getting ready now.
His breathing started moving, though.
Yeah. So, Dan, walk me through what was going through your head when you heard there's a buck, and then the process began. And I'll let you kind of tell the story from here if you want. And maybe
Sure.
we'll jump in, but you walk us through.
I'll do my best to try to give you guys a feel for what happened. So Justin says there's a buck behind us. First thought in my mind is like, you're kidding. And then
just here telling
No,
jokes.
but really.
Yeah. It's like, all right, here we go. Like, so like my next thought was like, all right, I want to get eyes on it to just see where it's at, see what I have to do next. Where the buck was at wasn't really where we were anticipating anything to really come by.
Yeah.
Right. Like we were kind of checking the back, but we weren't really like focused on that being a scenario where we would take a shot. Like we were looking out of the front window. I was looking out of the side. You were looking out of the side, but the back window was kind of like our least expected opportunity. So we kind of had to do some like shuffling around. Right.
Yep.
So Justin had to get a camera in position. I had to get like my shooting stick over to where I thought I could get comfortable and get the gun set up and get in position to take a shot. So at that point, the buck was just kind of staring at us, right?
Yeah, it was downwind.
Yeah.
He knew something was up, but apparently didn't know enough because he didn't move. He just stood there, just kind of like nose up, looking, staring, but for a long time, for a minute or two, I don't know, for quite a while.
Right.
I'd ranged him.
Yep.
As soon as I saw him, I'd spun, got my head out there and ranged him. It was just over 100 yards. And then, you started getting in position, knelt down, got your shooting stick up.
Yeah. And, you were doing a good job with like, take your time, get comfortable. And then, he's going to start walking away. And right then, I'll try to make a big noise to stop him. And that's when we'll have an opportunity to get a shot. And so I get set up. I'm shaking, man. I'm getting nervous. I'm getting the buck fever coming down. I'm breathing heavy, but I'm just trying to stay in control as best as possible, right? I had a little awkward thing going on with my shooting stick where I had to prop it up against my leg, get the gun up. But I had the buck in my view, had him in the crosshairs, and as he started to walk away, he kind of turned away from us, took a few steps, and then looked back, and he was quartering away from us. Perfect opportunity, right? Like perfect case scenario to get a shot. Mark, you didn't really have to give him a big noise or anything, but I just kind of like kept saying, don't rush the shot. Like, just like we practiced, just easy squeeze. And
for what it was worth, it was a pretty hard quarter. So, he wasn't, he was definitely less broadside than you would hope. But
your angle makes it look worse than it was. From my angle, it looked not terribly bad. I mean, it was a good shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, it was definitely the best that he had given us at that point.
when I saw him in the scope, I said, "This is fantastic." And I put the crosshairs where they needed to be. Obviously, I had some shake in me, you know. And then I let it rip, right? Like I let it rip, and I kept looking through the scope. He started to trot off, but he didn't go busting through, sprinting away like he spooked. He kind of trotted off, went into the fence row, kind of in like that wooded area. Looked back, was flicking his tail, had his leg up, and my first thought after I took the shot was like what happened? Like, did I hit him? Why didn't he drop? Right? Like, that's what I was looking for. I was like, why didn't he drop? Like, he didn't drop. I must have missed. So then I think it was you guys were like, you hit him. Like, I think that was a good shot. And then it looked like he either turned down like a little ridge or a little hill. And I think you guys said, like, we think he went down. He tipped over. And I said, really? Like I'm thinking in my head, like, I don't know. Like, you know, I don't know if I missed him. I don't know if I hit him and it wasn't a good shot. I started to get a little worried.
Yeah. And I remember looking through the binoculars, watching it all happen. And at the hit, I couldn't see impact, but the way he started running off, sort of, I immediately thought that's a good hit.
Yeah.
Because the tail tucked almost immediately, and he almost looked a little hunched over, and then when he got to the edge of the woods, he stopped, and that's when it looked like he was a little hunched, and the tail started flicking. And the first thing I thought when I saw that was, okay, hit back a little bit, because whenever you see a deer that hunches up and the tail goes kind of like that seems like a paunch hit of some kind. But with the quartering away angle, I thought, okay, entry a little bit back, which explains why it reacted that way, exit right through the lungs, dead deer. And so he stops for a couple seconds like that, just inside the tree, so you can just kind of see his figure like that. And then tail keeps flicking, step, and then it really looks like
It did look
it
like
really
he
looks
dropped.
like his head dropped. I can't explain what we were seeing, but it really looked like that. So that's what I saw through the binoculars, and then Justin and I both thought, man, we think that's a hit deer.
There was nothing that he did that indicated he wasn't hit. I mean, yeah, just like you explained, it's like Dan, and now I feel like, you know, a goon, because like I just totally myself misinterpreted it, you know.
Do you feel complicit now?
I feel like Dan's not going to trust me.
I don't know about that, Justin.
So yeah, but man, we were stoked.
Yeah.
And Dan was like sitting there. I'm like, dude, you got to start like texting people, like get excited about this.
When we heard the shot over in our blind, it was immediate. Me and Charlie looked at each other and we were stoked.
Yeah.
Like we heard the shots, like that was Dan. That's a deer. Like it's down. I pulled out my phone immediately and just was waiting for a text message, just waiting for something. So we were feeling the excitement too over in our blind for it.
Yeah, we were so excited.
Yeah.
And you know, that's those moments are what you live for as a hunter. Like that ultimate euphoria. Dan just shot his first deer. We were so excited for you. And you were the one being cautious, which was smart. Me and Justin were like little stupid kids. Saying, woohoo!
Yeah.
And, you know, long story short, we can kind of fast forward a little bit. We decided to, you know, give it a little time, go back, get the UTV, get the rest of the crew, just make sure everything was cool. And then we go back out there and look. And when we went back out there to look, couldn't find blood, couldn't find hair, couldn't find anything. Searched and searched, no sign. And then we thought, well, let's just peek over to where we saw him go down, quote unquote. He should be right there. Go over there, nothing, no blood. We find one speck of red that we think is blood. That's it. We spent quite a good amount of time from there, continuing to look, went in a little ways. At this point, after finding nothing between the site impact and where we thought the deer had gone down and so little sign, I started getting worried. But I have a friend with a tracking dog who I know is really good and has helped a lot of people in this situation. So once we got to that point where it was like, okay, we do not have good blood. We've searched a decent ways in here without any kind of positive sign. What he's always telling me is like, don't screw it up for me. If you're not feeling good about it, don't go too far and ruin it for the dog. Let the dog do the work. So we eventually decided to pull back, wait for the dog, and not push our luck. So we had my friend come out with his dog. We continued to look more around the site of impact, trying to find something, continued to look inside the woods, trying to find something. My buddy comes out with his dog. He goes tracking. The dog's on a track, but she doesn't follow blood. She follows like an interdigital gland scent. So even though there was no blood, she was tracking something. But he kept going and going and going. And Justin, you were with him for a while, so you saw this. But to make it, to kind of take hours of time and compress it into a short period, they found 0 blood, found 0 deer, found no hair, found nothing. And
yeah, we restarted that track 3 times just to be sure that she was on the right deer. And yeah, we just never could find anything.
Yeah, and he went and did downwind sweeps of all the different areas of cover just in case to see if she could smell a body or something. Nothing. So I don't know. It was midnight or 1 o'clock or something by the time we called it. And I ended up finding, after looking for more blood, I found in this area where we found that little speck of blood, like a little less than a fingernail of blood. There's a lot of these little berries, black, red berries. And one of the berries, I was smashing berries to try to see, like, what does the smashed berry look like? And one of them had, like, an orange jelly-like consistency. I was like, okay, that doesn't look anything like our blood, so that must be really blood. But then later, I was testing on another berry, and that one looked exactly like our speck of blood. There was a dark red berry. So then I was starting to question, like, was that even blood? We looked at the footage over and over again, like, man, we can't see an impact. We can't see, like, maybe this little movement on his shoulder is it, but we just can't tell on the small screen. And so we pulled out for the night. You guys blew it up on the big screen and looked at it again. And what did you guys see, Justin, when you looked on the big screen?
Yeah, we got back at 12:30, and I was like, just kind of dying to see what had happened, because I knew once we got like zoomed in a bit, it would tell more of the story. And I could see the shot, and immediately, the deer reacted. And when you go frame by frame, like, then I see behind the deer, there's a reaction at the base of this tree, and I see a stick jump, and then I see, like, it was immediately evident that, like, the shot was over its back and it hit the tree behind, and there was a little bit of a, and obviously you have a 3-inch screen, you can't really tell what's going on, but yeah. So it was like, man, I wish we could have seen this sooner, but it actually was a relief, because I knew then we could tell Dan, like, listen, the deer's not hurt at all. What we thought was blood must be these berries, which we kind of like wrestled with the whole time because we kept kind of seeing. And so I knew that Dan was already like struggling, but I knew like part of that struggle was the fact that he has a wounded deer out there. So it was a way to add closure to that situation and like hopefully get him mentally where he could try again.
Yeah. So we ended the night and, kind of said, Dan, take tonight, sleep in, think about what you want to do, and then let's figure out how we want to proceed from here. What was last night and this morning like for you?
Yeah, last night was rough. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was like, a lot of different things happening in my mind. Like, the big thing was, all right, I just shot at an animal. I wounded it, but he didn't die. That's been like my biggest thing with getting into hunting is like, I don't want to like have to put, more than one arrow into a deer, more than one shot into a deer. I just want a clean and ethical kill. Like that was really eating away at me. The other part of it is like we were out, all of us were out, and I really appreciate you guys being out and being so supportive. Like that was like, God, like I put us in this situation. I'm bringing the whole group down. Like I feel terrible, but you guys are great. Justin, you, Junebug, and Andy like put in some work to try to, figure out what was going on, and I really appreciate that. That was going through my mind, and I felt bad. I felt, a little bit of embarrassment. Like I just kind of had a sick to my stomach type of feel in so many different ways. That was last night, but I went back. I was so exhausted, and I ended up luckily crashing right away. Woke up this morning, and I had talked to one of my fishing buddies, Will, and he was, I was running him through everything that was going on. I was telling him, like, what should I do? Like, should I just kind of take it off or whatever? And he was like, kind of talking me through some stuff. He's like, he's a fan of Jajo, and he goes, when something bad happens, like, good, get better.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, like now you got me all fired up.
Yeah.
So, you had mentioned maybe, taking the morning off and getting some more shots in, making sure our gun was good, and then maybe doing something like an evening hunt. And I was like, all right, let's do that. Let's get comfortable with the gun again, and then let's maybe try to give it another shot in the evening.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of you guys are familiar with the old hunting tradition of eating, some organ, the heart or a chunk of liver off the first animal you kill. I had that when I was a little kid, and it was a big deal. Organ meats were always prized by frontier people who knew the importance of getting a lot of different minerals and nutrients. And as often is the case, those guys were onto something, because organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. And you can get the same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil, made exclusively from regeneratively raised, grass-fed, and finished cattle. Heart and Soil's unique freeze-drying process means all those important nutrients are trapped in, ensuring you experience every one of the benefits of nature's superfood in a clean, convenient, taste-free capsule. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And make sure to use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. That's heartandsoil.co. Use the code MeatEater. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Well, I was excited to hear that, because my experience has always been that like what happened is the worst. It's the worst feeling. You go from this euphoria of thinking that the thing you've wanted so badly just happened to just having it crash back down. I mean, there's no wilder swing of emotions that I can think of. We go from, we say it all the time, the highest to highest to the lowest to lowest. I mean, that's, ugh. But the best thing I've found is to you feel it that day or that night, experience it. Okay, this sucks. This happened. Like, we're not going to ignore that it happened. It happened. But it's now past us. It's behind us. There's nothing I can't do anything to change what happened. All I can do is change what's next. So like Jajo says, good. Now what? Now what are you going to do? And that's the way I've always tried to approach things. So that next day, I like to shoot, get my confidence back, and then it's back into it. And so that's what we did.
Yeah.
This morning, you came over to my place. We did some more shooting. You were shooting great. The sight was actually, for whatever reason, the scope was hitting a little bit higher than we'd have wanted, so we tweaked that a little bit. We practiced different shooting angles, different shooting positions. So you shot seated, you shot kneeling, you shot with a good rest, you shot with just the stick rest. Gotcha. I hope you're feeling confident again and locked in. And we're going to go out and give it a crack tonight. So you feeling ready to take this next step and get back after it? Yeah,
I'm excited. I'm feeling ready. Yeah. Last night was rough, and so many things were going through my mind. Like, God, like, I should just stick to fishing or something. Like,
Well, I'm glad you got past that, because I love fishing.
Yeah.
But
It's not as much meat.
there's not as much meat. And I think that when this all comes together for you, and it's going to, I can't promise it's going to happen today, but at some point this is going to come together for you.
Makes it all the much sweeter.
Oh man, it's going to be an unbelievable culmination for you. And you're going to eat the best food of your life, and you'll never feel so satisfied with a meal. And the work you put into this is going to come back tenfold. And I'm just so excited for that moment. And I hope it happens tonight. If not, I hope I'm going to get a phone call or a picture, and I'm going to crack a cold one for you.
Sweet, man.
And I'm going to be really, really happy because I got a lot of confidence in you from spending time with you, last fall a little bit, this summer, and now this week. You are on the right track, man.
Thanks, man.
You're definitely on the right track. So I guess the way to end this then, because we know how Dan's hunt last night, and we'll get an ending there possibly later today. But you had made these mistakes, or maybe not even really big mistakes, but you had these things happen, you know, the nerves, and we've talked about things like Justin described, feeling like you had to force a shot, feeling like you've had to force a shot with that deer in the bow. You're a brand new hunter and you experienced that. Well, we should end the conversation with a very experienced hunter describing something like that. So, for all of you folks listening, you heard last week I shared the story of how I killed the drop time buck out here in the back 40. Well, when I got that done, we finished filming things, and I had a couple extra days before Dan and Dane were going to show up. So I had some bonus hunts. I thought, man, I can get back and try to get after my target buck again. This deer I've been hunting for the last 3 years. Call him Tran. Anyone listening for a long period of time has heard too much about this deer. So I was really excited. Like, man, I get to go back after it. Good weather, good conditions. I haven't been in there 4 days. He's been in this little pocket so much in the past. I'm going to get back in there and take a crack. So a couple updates from the last time I talked about my hunt for Tran. So the last time on the podcast I gave you as an update, it was after I had seen him locked onto a doe. I tried to spot and stalk in on him, never came quite close enough. And then 2 days later, I think I made the move into like the middle of this bedding area, super early, set up a new stand, and he came by 10 minutes before shooting light, and I couldn't shoot him, but he was right there at 10 yards, and then he winded me after he walked past my shooting light and then went downwind. So that had all happened. After that hunt, kept on going after him. The next day, I'm walking out to set up on the north side of this bedding area, and as I'm walking on the outside edge of a cut cornfield, the only way I can get to the north side of the section, there's never deer bedded around here. This is a safe access route. It's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon or 1:30 in the afternoon, and a doe jumps out from in front of me in like a little 10-foot patch of grass on the edge of this cornfield. The doe starts running, and then right behind her steps up Tran, goes running away. He was downwind of me. He saw me, so I just busted him like 50 yards away, and he goes running away. So that's the second time. He winded me twice the day before because he went downwind to me before daylight and then came 200 yards downwind later in the day prior. And now the next day I just bumped him visually and with wind. So I'm bummed out and frustrated with that. I reposition for that evening's hunt. Don't see him that night. But the next day I keep on moving. And basically at this point in the season, after having had so many encounters with him in and around this bedding area, I decided like the rest of my hunt for him, I'm not blowing him out of here. He wants to be in this pocket. It's like 30 acres of thick nasty, and there's so many does in here, and it just seems like everything I'm seeing, this is where he is. And he's just going from doe to doe to doe in here, and there's no reason for him to leave because there's enough does in here and there's food and cover. And if historically he's not been bothered in this area, just this year for the first time I could get into some of this stuff. So I decided I'm just going to keep cycling around this based off wind direction, being one of these couple key places that he seems to pass through the most when he's cruising, or where does will take him in and out, and I'm going to camp out in those spots. So that next night, I make a move into the same general area, see him again. He's kind of cruising, follows a doe a ways, blah, 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 but similar situation. Doesn't give me a shot, too far away with her, and then follows her out into the corn. That was right around the end of the first period of hunting before I had to come and start hunting the back 40. So come hunt the back 40, kill the drop time buck. Now I'm back on the property. I've got my couple bonus days. First day, it's cold front. pushing to the south side of this pocket of bedding because we've got some slightly northwest winds, and get set up on the edge of the stuff. Every time I'm going, I'm setting in new stands. I've been hunting new spots every single time, going in with my sticks and saddle. About an hour after daylight, I'm watching TJ, this buck that looks just like Tran, but like a couple years younger. He comes working past me like 5 yards. I'm watching him, and then I look up, and here comes the real deal. Here comes Tran coming right at me. Looks great. Like, this is going to have him grab my bow, get clipped on. He's at like 75. He's at 70. He's at 65. He's at 60. He's at 55, kind of heading right at me. And then he turns his angle and starts angling away, back to 60, back to 65, back to 70. And at that point, I realized, okay, he's not coming my way. I got to try something. So I grabbed the grunt tube, gave him a grunt. He stopped, looked my way, took a step forward, and then turned and started walking away again. So I'll try to get a little more aggressive and try a snort wheeze. And we just had this whole big debate about snort wheezes like the day before with Tony and Justin and Charlie. And I'd always says, man, I really don't like to use snort wheezes on immature bucks, and even on big mature bucks. It rarely works in Michigan where I hunt. But, it was worth a shot. So I rip out a snort wheeze. He spins, stares at me, and then does like the head, like left to the right, to the left, to the right. And then he's like, not today, bro. And he starts running away. He goes bolting off and then stops after like bolting like 40 yards, stops, turns back again, and then just is like a fast-paced walk, kind of paralleling away from me. So once again, another close call. Doesn't come together. I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to kill this deer. And this has just been like endless. Every couple days I have an encounter with him, but just a little too far away, or something goes wrong, and that was the same story last year. And I've been talking about this deer and busting my balls trying to get this deer, and it just felt like it was never going to happen. And as much as I love hunting deer and I love chasing one specific deer and I love all that stuff, I was definitely getting frustrated. I just feel like I'm chasing my tail, and I don't know. It was just, I was kind of just bonking. Just was kind of like, I don't know what to do. Like every night I come back and talk to my wife. She's like, well, what happened? What do you think? I'm like, I kind of throw my hands up in the air. I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm right there, but never right there. And I don't know what else to do. I'm just going to keep on trying and keep on being in this general area and try to be as smart as I can with the wind. And eventually I got to get lucky. Like, I just need the right set of circumstances. I'm right in the game. I just need one more thing to fall in my favor. So make another move the next day, see him again, but he's chasing a doe out of range, where I was the day before or some shit like that. Takes us one day further, and this is November 12th or 13th, and I pushed in, got in really early, came in the back door of this bedding area, set up just on the outside edge of the really thick, nasty stuff, just with the wind cutting it, and this is right on his doorstep of the bedding area he likes the most. There's more sign in there than anywhere else. There's more does coming in and out of the spot than just about anywhere else, and I could get away with it with a wind there. And it was kind of slow morning, but around 9:30, 10, I started seeing bucks showing up. Just like there was zero deer, and then all of a sudden like buck, and then I saw deer go running past. About 10:30, I saw a buck go run. The last buck I saw looked like tall white tines. Like, man, that could have been him. That might have been him. It was just a brief flash in this little gap in the timber, but I kind of got right next to that. He might have just ran up in there. Watching. I see some other bucks come back from that direction, and just feeling good. It's late morning now. It's almost 11 o'clock, but when you see that kind of activity, basically what I'm thinking in my head is, okay, there's a hot doe somewhere in my general region. That's what I need. And sure enough, not minutes after kind of sitting there having that internal conversation, a doe pops up over this little berm. And the first thing I saw was she popped over the berm, and then she squatted and starts peeing, and then like her tail's just flicking. And then she stops, just kind of hunched over, tail's flicking. And immediately like, that's a hot doe. That's a doe, and there's a buck with her. Like, there's something behind her. And I'm watching and waiting. She kind of takes a few more steps and just stands there, tail flicking. Takes a few more steps, looks behind her, and I just see the tips of these tines, and they keep on getting bigger and taller and taller and taller and taller. And Tran the man steps out over this berm. Perfect, like, the image is like we're in this timber. I'm on the edge of this thick stuff, and there's like standing mature timber, and he's actually in the standing mature timber. And there's all these trees, but then there's like one lane in between all the trees, and it looks kind of like if you're in an old cathedral, like an old Catholic cathedral. If you can imagine the aisle that runs down the middle of the cathedral, and you've got all your pews on either side. He was kind of standing there at the end of the aisle, like the pastor at the front of this big Roman Catholic church, standing there just proud, holding his hands up, but it was this huge antlers. He kind of turns and looks, and his head's kind of going left and right, and the light's glimmering off him. And I think, holy shit, here we go. And then she turns. She'd been going kind of like parallel to me. And she turns and starts walking right to me. And that's when I really said, holy shit, here we go. Grabbed my bow, and I remember thinking, finally I've got a hot doe that's bringing him right towards me, and that's what they do. Coming my way, and I remember thinking in this moment, okay, think through everything. Where's she going to come through? I made sure there's no sticks behind you that you're going to bump. When I moved down to position, I said, okay, make sure, how are you going to adjust your knees here? How are you going to be positioned? Trying to think through exactly where we're going to pass through. I grabbed my rangefinder, made sure it would be easy for me to grab my rangefinder. I started ranging things in front of her so that I would know ahead of time if she stops behind this tree, she's going to be at this distance. If they come through here, it's going to be that distance. I remember looking at my broadhead, make sure my broadhead didn't get pulled off or anything. I was trying to check all. I was okay, check. And they're just slowly working their way. She comes towards this little old 2-track that runs right along this edge down nearby. And I remember thinking, okay, that's where she's going to cross this 2-track. If she crosses the 2-track and gets to the other side of it, she gets into the thick. And then there's no shots at that point. So I ranged. Right as she crosses, I ranged her, and she's about 40 yards. So I'm thinking, okay, he's going to be crossing just about the same place, about 40 yards. And there's a big tree right there, and there's the Y in the tree. And right in between the Y is where she crossed. And I thought, okay, that's my one shot if he comes through there. So she crosses. I'm watching him. As soon as he got to, just before that and stepped behind a tree, I drew back, anchored, got on it, and just waited for him to step into that hole. And as soon as he stepped in that hole, I'm like, rant, try to stop him. And he just blasts right through that lane. Didn't even pause. Just right through, zero shot. And immediately is down into that thick with the doe. So now he's at 39 or 38 or something like that. She keeps walking. And now I remember thinking to myself, now what? You have to get a shot. He's right here. He's finally in range. You finally have your chance at this deer that has consumed your life for the last 2 years and everything. I've never worked so hard for a deer. I know every year I talk like that, I guess, but this has really been a different level. I've tried to analyze what I do and how I do it, and have I made good decisions, and have I been doing things the right way. And even though the results haven't been what I've wanted, I'm a nerd, and I read a lot about decision making and trying to find different ways to analyze the quality of your decisions, how to make better decisions, how to learn from your results. And there's something called resulting, which is a bias that the human mind has typically, where you will misjudge decisions based off the end result, when oftentimes an end result is not directly correlated to a decision, but a variety of different factors. So you won't take into effect pure chance. You won't take into effect, all these different variables. And you'll just say, well, because such and such guy threw an interception, that was a bad play call, and that quarterback sucks, and that was bad. When actually maybe it really was. If you look at the probabilities and if you look at everything, it was really the best play call he could have made. And it really was a good pass. But they just got a little unlucky, or that one guy took a step and it changes everything. And so what I've tried to do over the course of the season is to not judge what I'm doing based solely on the results of each one of my hunts. If I were to do that, I'd be getting more and more and more frustrated, and I think I'm an idiot. But to instead try to judge the quality of my decisions throughout the season. And so think, okay, based on what I know, based on what I've seen, based on all the work I've put in, did I do the right thing? Did I do the thing that I knew I should do? When I look back and think, okay, with all these factors, was that decision, did I put in the amount of work I should have? Did I do the thing that would have given me the highest probability? Even though it didn't work out, could I have done something different, looking back on it without some kind of hindsight bias and would I've done it differently? And many times, like, no, it didn't work out, but that was a damn good decision, and you executed on the right way. I bring all this up to say that it has felt like more than any other year I've leveled up, but the results haven't panned out that way. I've been like really happy with how I made adjustments and my level of aggression and my willingness to try new things and adapt and adapt and adapt. And so now finally things are working out. It looks like, it feels like finally, this is it. This is this thing I've been building up to all this time. And he's in this thick stuff. And my brain flips over to, it's got to happen, it's got to happen, it's got to happen. You need a shot, you need a shot, you need a shot. And all of that slow and smooth and controlled stuff flies out the window. And now it's, how are you going to, you got to shoot, you got to shoot, you got to figure out a way to do it. And so I remember he's in there, and I'm like, there's got to be some way to get a shot through here. And I remember I'm in my saddle, I'm looking up and I'm looking down, I'm trying to find, is there any pocket, is there any hole, is there any gap, is there any little slit I could fit an arrow through? And I find a little hole, like a melon or a small volleyball or something. There's a little hole. I'm like, man, if he comes right through there, which was where the doe was, I could maybe slip one through there. And I remember I had to adjust my tether. So for anyone who hunts from a saddle, you know what I'm talking about here. I had to like pull my rope down and adjust like 3 feet down. So instead of being like leaning up, almost standing on my platform, now I'm like 3 feet down lower, like hanging down low, my knee against the tree. So I'm down low enough so I could actually shoot through this hole. And, I just got to get Charlie horse in my leg.
Getting old.
It's been a rough one.
I find this hole, and I'm looking at the hole, and I'm thinking I could slip one through there. But there's still twigs and branches and stuff all around it. It's just the one thing that's not like impenetrable. But in that moment, I'm thinking, I got to do it, I got to do it, I got to do it, I got to do it. And I draw back as it's getting close, and then he hangs up, and he's standing there, and he's standing there, and he's standing there. And then finally he steps into that hole. And even if I'm trying to like remember everything that's going on, I even think in the moment I said something to myself like, this is oops, excuse me. I usually don't drop the F word on this podcast. I remember thinking like this, I think I remember having a moment where like this isn't good. But it was like I was already pulling back as that was happening. Like I was not drawing back, like I was on him and I was executing the shot, just hoping I could punch it through. And moments after I released that arrow, I instantly said, I released the arrow and instantly was like, that was so stupid. But for the 30 seconds preceding it, I couldn't get that into my head. I had no control of, it was all that pressure built up. It was like a volcano inside of me, and I couldn't stop the lava. And it was just going. The train was going, and I had to shoot. And then as soon as I shot, I knew that I'd done the wrong thing. And I knew that I just did the one thing that I tell myself and I tell other people not to do, which is force the shot. I told my dad this, I told you this. You can always get another shot someday, but you can never take an arrow back. If you force a shot, if you force a bullet, you can never get that back. And I did it myself. And I couldn't get that arrow back. And I missed. And I immediately knew I missed. And I think, when this little tiny hole hit those branches at the end. And it could have been, I saw, it was just a stupid mess. And I still, now even looking back now, I'm just like, I still feel the same way I guess I felt then, just like devastated and just stupid and embarrassed and pissed. And another thing I remember is as soon as that happened, and I said to myself, that was like, what are you doing, man? The first thing I thought was, I'm never telling anyone about this. First thing I thought was, like, I'm not going to tell my friends. I'm not telling my wife. I was so mad that I just had let that happen and so frustrated by it that I was like, I can't tell anyone about this. It was like so painful in that moment.
Yeah, but isn't that life though? I mean, obviously, it doesn't matter who you are. Like Michael Jordan failed, and he was the best, right? You always just try your best, and like you were saying, Doesn't mean the outcome is going to be the best. But what if you'd have killed him?
Right.
You'd have been like, I did the right thing.
Yeah, talk about resulting.
It's
Yeah.
like the sliver of hope is
Yeah.
what makes us do kind of those
I mean, it's
out of left field decisions. Like
Yeah.
it might work.
If
But
we all did it, if we always like succeeded, then I mean, how could we grow? You know, so I think you only think you made the wrong decision because it didn't work out.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, because even if I did kill him and did hit him, it's still, if I would have, it would have been by luck. Like, it was still it was a low odds shot. I should not have forced a shot through a tiny little gap like that with little twigs and branches and shit all around it. I simply think that is not a good, smart, high odds shot. There was too much room for error. It was forced.
Yeah. I guess ethics would come into play there.
Yeah, and so for that reason, I shouldn't have. Like, if I'd watched anyone else do that, I would have said, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. You can get another shot another day, or maybe he'll swing around, or maybe he'll turn around, or, you don't need to. God forbid I could. Now, the worst case scenario didn't happen. The worst case scenario could have been I forced that shot, and I did hit him. And I hit him in the guts, or I hit him in the leg, or injure him somehow. I mean, so I got lucky in that regard. At least it was a clean miss, and I was able to eventually get down, go check it, found my arrow, saw exactly 0 blood, 0 anything on it, so I could confirm 100% clean miss. But thank goodness I didn't wound him. And yeah, could it have worked out? Maybe. Was there very high odds of it working out? No. Was I happy with how I handled the moment? No. It was the exact opposite of what I did 4 days prior with the drop time buck, right? You talked about how I was in control of my process. I was slow. I wasn't forcing it. You were wondering, why isn't he shooting yet? Well, it's because I was in it. I was focused. I was in control. In this case, it was the ship was moving, and I was just hanging on. And I'm better than that. I'm experienced enough that I shouldn't have let that happen, but it did. And I eventually decided that, kind of back to what I was telling you the other day, Dan. You all you can do is figure out what you can do next and what good can come from this. We had this podcast a month ago maybe, with the author of this book, The Obstacle is the Way. And the idea here is that oftentimes, like, it's the challenge, it's the thing that goes wrong, it's the roadblock. That is actually what leads to the thing you want. That's what's going to lead you to growth. That's going to lead you to success. If you choose to look at it as you're the victim, then it can be your downfall. If you look at it, okay, this is a thing that happened, now what? That can actually be the impetus for good things. And so, looking back on it, I thought, okay, I could keep this to myself, and nobody has to know, and no one needs to look at Mark and think he's an idiot or think he shanked the shot of the buck of his life, the buck he's talked about. No one will give me crap on Instagram about it. No one will judge me. My friends won't know. Blah, 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 blah. And all that seemed very tempting in that moment. But then over the course of that day, I thought, okay, this thing happened. Now what are you going to do about it? And there's 2 good things that could come out of it. One of the good things could be that I could learn from it. I could once again see and examine and learn from one of my mistakes and get better from it. But also maybe this is something that we can use as an example that can help other people too. And I think what I've tried to do with this podcast is never position myself as like I am the end-all, be-all expert on all things, and you should look at me and listen to me, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to do things perfectly. I'm not that guy. Anyone who listens knows that I'm not the guy that you need to put on a pedestal and think, man, that guy's a slayer, he's perfect, and if only I could be like that. No. I have been someone who has a huge passion for this thing, and I'm always trying to get better, and I want to share with everyone what's working, what's not, what we can learn from my mistakes and others, and how do we all grow from that. And so here I am. I'm at the biggest mistake, the biggest failure of my hunting journey in a good number of years. I haven't had a doozy like this in a long time. And And here I am. My big goal, I've been going after this thing. I put more time and energy into, I did this thing. And I blew it. And so the question is now, what's Mark going to do? What can he do? And for what it's worth, what I've tried to do, what I decided to do is, all right, I'll do just what Dan did. That night, that one hurt. It was like a knife in the back. I just felt like I'd let myself down, my family down, whatever. I don't mean to over dramatize it, but it felt intense for me. But the next day, got the bow out and kept shooting, thinking through, how do you not make that same mistake again? What did I learn from this? I learned that I still do lose control now. I thought maybe I had it all under control. I thought maybe I wouldn't fall prey to that. But the pressure was there. I felt like I had to force it, and I did. And that was a mistake. So next time, hopefully it's going to be a thing where I can catch myself. I can remember the pain of this moment and not let that happen again. I can be better prepared for the next situation. And all this, the point of any and all this is that it's going to happen. It does happen. Happened to me. Happened to Justin. Happened to Dan. Hope it doesn't happen to you, Dane, with your bow, but it could.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I hope it doesn't.
We'll see. Stay tuned.
But, and there's no secret formula here. There's no secret tactic I can tell you. It's going to be hey, here's this thing, and it's going to change you, and you're never going to miss anymore. You're going to be just a bow hunting assassin now, and you're going to be ice cold. No, you need to live through these things. You got to work through them. You got to keep practicing. You got to keep trying. You got to keep the faith. You have to decide that, no, I'm not going to let that define me. No, I'm not going to let that ruin the rest of my season. You can't change the past. All you can do is decide, what do you do next? And damn it, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep getting after it. I'm going to keep getting better. I'm going to keep hunting. And maybe I'll kill this buck someday. Maybe I won't. But I know that I am different, and I will be better because of it. And I think as a hunter or a dad or a businessman or a woman or anything, you're not always going to be successful reaching your goal, but you can always get better. You can always work to take that next step. And that's something worth striving for. So that's where I'm at.
Well said.
Any thoughts? Any closing words? Anything else we want to add to this before wrapping it up?
Nope.
I got nothing.
No, man. I'm good.
All right. Well, then here's what we're going to do. We're going to go out for our last hunt of the trip, Dan. We're going to try to get you your first deer. I hope, and I'm crossing all my fingers and toes, that you're going to get a crack at one. Are you wanting to shoot a doe tonight?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've got higher odds. We're going to stop the podcast now. And if we shoot a deer tonight, we're going to come back. We're going to stop for 5 seconds. We're going to have a long pause here, and then we're going to jump right back in, and we're going to tell you Dan's story of success. If we don't shoot a deer tonight, you're going to hear a 5-second pause, and then the damn thing's just going to end. But we're going to leave you with 5 seconds of drama, and then you're going to find out how tonight went one way or another. So with that, Dan, let's cross our fingers and toes. Dane, same to you. You're hunting too. Hoping that you have some success tonight.
Get my feet on the ground.
Feet on the ground. Yeah, we're going to have an exciting hunt. Going to ground pound it.
It's going to be good.
Okay, are we ready?
Think so.
All right, let's start our 5-second pause in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And unfortunately, we don't have the happy ending. Had a really close call. At last light, a couple does came out, and Dan almost got a shot at one of them, but the only shot opportunity came when the two does were stacked. There was one younger one directly behind the big mature doe, and we didn't want to take that shot and possibly hit both, so we passed on it. It was a situation where Dan did the smart thing and didn't force a potentially risky shot. So that was tonight. And with that, we're going to wrap this episode up. I kind of struggled with this one, especially even after we recorded it as we were walking out to hunt. I was just thinking in my head, did we achieve anything with this podcast? Did we help anyone with this podcast? Was there anything revolutionary with this that was actually going to help someone that made this worth listening to? I don't know. I sure hope so. Recording this and putting this out there, I sure as hell hope there's some good that can come from this. I hope it wasn't just us rambling on about the cruddy things that happened to us. But if you're listening to this and that's how you feel, I'm sorry. I hope I hope that's not the case, though. It's one of those things that is a tough deal, right? But I will close with this thought, which is after my miss on Tran that I just told you guys all about, which obviously, really, really bummed me out, as I described. After all those things happened, I had one really important thing that I remembered, and that was my kids. I knew I was going to go home and see my boys. I was going to see my wife. And though at times it can feel like deer hunting is so, so important, and that whether or not I achieve this goal is so, so important, having children or family members or those other things in life that can center you again, remembering those things and those really, really good things in your life, that can help you put all this in perspective. So yeah, I missed a deer. Yeah, it was a deer I really wanted to get a shot at. Yeah, I'm very disappointed. At the same time, life goes on. I've got a couple wonderful kids. I've got a great family, a good job. I'm very fortunate. You can't hang your head for too long. And that's what I remember. And I went home and I gave my boys a hug, and I ran around pretending to be a wolf while my son pretended to be an elk. And I helped him shoot his pretend Nerf bow, and we were laughing and playing and having a grand old time, and everything is okay. So for whatever it's worth, that's something that I oftentimes need to remind myself of, that this stuff can sometimes be all consuming, but you don't need to let it be. There's more to it. And I'm really lucky. I've got a couple kiddos here at home that help me remember that often. So that is it. That's my long-winded, rambling final thought of the day. I hope this was helpful in some kind of way. Thank you for listening. Thanks for hearing us out and rolling with us on this one. Hopefully we're all going to learn a little something. We're all going to get a little better. We're all going to enjoy the rest of our seasons. I hope you guys are having a great season. And I will leave you with one final reminder, some good news. Good news is that, like I mentioned earlier, Season 2 of the Back 40 is now out there, and the second episode just dropped a few days ago. So head on over to the Meat Eater YouTube channel to watch Episode 2. That's the one that Jajo, the guy we were just talking to there, that's the episode in which we introduce him and you see him working on the farm. So check it out. Thank you for everything. We appreciate your time, being a part of this community, spending some time with us. And until next time, stay wired to hunt.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.